U.S. government was seemingly complicit in enticing the American public to buy a home and therefore a mortgage at any cost. Do you think our legislators are doing the same thing now? And are we creating a bubble?
No, I don't think we're remotely near a bubble in terms of housing now. And I certainly think that your statement is accurate but not complete in terms of what went on before. I mean, the whole country almost really kind of went crazy in terms of housing, and the government was a very big part of it because they're a very big part of the financing of it. And it's certainly true that plenty of legislators were encouraging Freddie and Fannie to be doing things that they shouldn't have been doing, and not just in retrospect. I mean, if you looked at it at the time, you could come to that conclusion. But there were an awful lot of people doing the same thing. I mean, it was coming from all sources, and it had that aspect to it, which bubbles do, where year after year, for 3 or 4 or 5 years, whatever it might be, that the skeptics looked like idiots, and that the people who jumped on the bandwagon were the ones that were refinancing their houses at ever higher prices, and people who were speculating on other houses. So it just looked all so wonderful, and people are really susceptible to that sort of bandwagon effect where they see their neighbors making easy money. Everybody's making easy money but them, and they finally succumb. It's the nature of things, and it doesn't mean the people at Freddie or Fannie were necessarily evil. A few of them were, or that legislators necessarily were evil, although again a few of them probably were. But overwhelmingly, I think most people just get caught up in a grand illusion. And it's happened many times in history. It'll happen again, and you can use that very much to your profit. We're not in that kind of a period now on housing. You've got very, very low interest rates, which support, in many cases, the purchase of houses, because it brings down the payments, obviously. But I personally, about a year ago, I mean, I recommended to people that they buy houses, and I certainly recommend to people that they finance them now. And in most places, I would recommend, if you're going to live in the community for some time and you find a house that fits your needs, I think it's probably a very good time to buy it, in part because the financing is so unbelievably attractive. Charlie?
Well, the main problem was that as things got crazier and crazier, the government could have intervened by pulling away the punch bowl before everybody was totally drunk. And instead, the government increased the proof. And this was not a good idea. But it's hard to get governments in a democracy to be pulling away the punch bowl from voters who want to get drunk.
Well, it's almost impossible.
Yeah.
I mean, it isn't.
So you're complaining a little bit about what's sort of inevitable in life. Not too good an idea.
Yeah. You'll see it again. Not necessarily in housing, but you will see it. And humans will continue to make the same mistake. They get fearful when other people are fearful. I mean, you saw it in those money market funds when 175 billion, flowed out in 3 days. I mean, when people get scared, it's very, very pervasive. I've often thought that, if I owned a bank in a 2-bank town, if I were inclined to, I might hire a whole bunch of Hollywood extras to form a line in front of the other guy's bank. I mean, the hell of it is that they, as soon as they got through forming a line there, they started forming a line at my bank, because people really get fearful en masse. Confidence comes back sort of one at a time, but when they get greedy en masse too. I mean, it's just the way the humans are constructed. That's where Charlie and I have an edge. We don't have an edge particularly in many other ways, but we are able, I think, perhaps better than most, to not really get caught up with what other people are doing. And you know, I don't know whether we learn that over time or what, but when we see falling prices, you know, we think it's an opportunity to buy, and it doesn't bother us. Now, we don't own things on margin, or we don't get ourselves in a position where somebody else can pull the rug out from under us, and that's enormously important in life. You never want to get out on a limb, and of course, leverage gets very tempting when things are going up, and leverage is what was introduced into housing in a huge way. I mean, people just felt that you were an idiot if you didn't keep borrowing more on your house and maybe using that to buy more houses or using it to live on or whatever. And then finally the roof fell in.